second speaker today is Dr. Paul Hubbard. Dr. Peter Darroch, I apologize. Dr. Peter Darroch is currently consultant at Discrival Solution at Elsevier. He completed a PhD in molecular signaling at the University of Strathclyde. Sorry, that's a terrible name. For me, not a terrible name for you, but... And then he got a degree in physiology at the University of Sant'Andrea. And he has been working for many years broadly speaking, in the healthcare industry. And now in February 2011, he started to work as a product sales manager for databases, including Scopus. And essentially his contribution to this talk is what are the tools that are needed in order to implement what Professor Hubbard has shown. Dr. Darroch, the floor is yours, still with the usual 13 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me here to present, and also to Professor Liberati for coordinating and leading the session. So what I'm going to do today is essentially take you through two core elements. The first will be research assessment and the support that an industrial partner such as Elsevier can provide to research assessment exercises. And then in a bit more detail, I will take you through how we're actually supporting HEFSI in their process of the Research Excellence Framework. So I hope that sounds okay. So I thought I would start off by, I found this list of 4 sort of key good practice statements from an expert group's assessment. It was a report commissioned by the European Commission, and essentially they put forward as good practice for research assessment. And I thought it was quite a nice starting point. And essentially what the key is, I won't read through the 4 points because I realise there's limited time, but if you read these 4 points, the key to a good assessment is really using the intelligent combination of as many different methods and indicators as you possibly can that are relevant to the purpose and actual function of the assessment exercise itself. And I think personally this is a good approach. So I thought that was quite nice. However, I realise this session is mainly around the assessment of biomedical and health research. And so this slide basically details a quick summary of what some of the things I found out. If you think of how to actually measure the value of research outputs within the health and medical field, it's quite a different and particular situation. You have the classic and more traditional peer review and the use of bibliometrics, but you also have a lot of retrospective case studies. You can use surveys and consultations, and there's the socio-economic aspect, which is very important to measure the impact of research. And so there's a lot of micro and macroeconomic studies that go on as well. And again, I'd reiterate that different methods of assessment will suit different profiles and different assessment exercises at different times, and indeed different organisations at different times. So as a content and data solutions provider in Elsevier, obviously bibliometrics are very important to us. And so what I thought of was ways in which we can assist using bibliometrics as a more quantitative way of assessing the impact in the biomedical field. And so you have the classic sort of citation analysis, which is really looking at the scientific impact and the scientific quality in a sort of objective manner. But there's also ways in which companies such as Elsevier can assist through things like assessing the development of technologies through scientific research or biomedical research. And that's through, has any of the research you've produced in an institution been cited in any patent applications or indeed granted patents, and indeed impact on health services. We have tools available and data sets available that index things like the Cochrane reviews. So can we monitor citations within these clinical guidelines or clinical review papers in order to inform the impact of research in the biomedical field? I believe we can, and there are teams, we have a team in-house that is actually looking at this possibility to see if we can assist to further improve the sort of like the ability to assess research. So this slide it's an overview of trying to capture in one very brief slide the innovative approach Elsevier are trying to take in terms of assisting research assessment. These little clouds, I like to call them, around the outside are the different data sets or tools that are available to Elsevier in order to assist with research assessment in the biomedical field, or in any field in fact. And you have the more traditional things like the Scopus Database, which is an abstract and citation database But we also have a lot of new tools, such as the SciVal tools, which are looking at more sort of new ways of assessing research. So in the inside here, you have basically what we can do as a company. We have the ability through our SciVal analytics team to look at the more standard tools such as citations, publication numbers, patents, and indeed usage. But the new tools we have, such as SciVal Spotlight, utilise co-citation analysis in order to bring a new view to the concept of research strengths, and we call them competencies. And so we can use that in combination with usage data and other interesting things like collaboration networks and brain circulation. So how can we monitor the performance of countries or institutions in terms of where their graduates go to, how many PhDs they award, and do the PhD graduates then move abroad in order to improve themselves? It's quite an interesting new way of looking at things. And all these tools allow Elsevier to produce bespoke reports or tools to help assessment exercises that are tailored to meet the needs of the organisation or institution that requires them. And the next slides are going to look at some of the bodies and governments we've worked with, mainly in the UK, using these tools, and also one specific example of a report. And then what we'll do is go into the REF, or the Research Excellence Framework, in slightly more detail. So these are a list of organisations within the United Kingdom that Elsevier has collaborated with using the tools and data sets available in the previous slide to produce bespoke reports or bespoke systems. Obviously, Mr. Hubbard has discussed the REF 2014 that we're currently engaged in, but we also, in 2011, we also produced a report for the 1994, which is a sort of group of universities who have a common mission goal. And we did a report for them, which was based on their specific criteria. I think it was mapping research excellence is what they were trying to do. But the one that I'm going to discuss next is the report we did for the Department of Business Innovation and Skills in the UK. And this is a good example. What was the Department of Business Innovation and Skills wanted to basically look at the international comparative performance of the UK research base compared to a group of comparator countries. Obviously the usual ones like the US and Japan, but also some more emerging nations who are coming to the forefront in scientific research like China, Brazil, and some others. And essentially what they came to Elsevier with was, we want to look at 4 dimensions of research performance: output quantity and quality, human capital, knowledge transfer, which is very relevant in the biomedical field. How do you measure knowledge transfer? And then research productivity. So what Elsevier, the SciVal analytics team, did was applied many quantitative and also qualitative methodologies through indicators, analysis, interpretations, and also workshops in order to produce basically a bespoke report. Now this was essentially, we did a preliminary finding report halfway through the session, and then we did the final report, which was published and launched in October the 19th this year. And we also created a bespoke metric portal so that people could go in and see the underlying data that was used to produce the report. And this was, again, a complete bespoke thing that Elsevier were able to assist to help the department actually achieve their goals for this assessment. So the second section of my talk is focusing in on the Research Excellence Framework 2014, which Mr. Hubbard has introduced previously. The Research Excellence Framework is basically, our support of this project is basically founded on the Scopus Database. It's the world's largest abstract and citation database, which covers over 19,500 titles from over 5,000 publishers. And what this gives the funding councils in the UK is confidence in the breadth and depth of the coverage, both geographically and subject-wise. So the support for the REF is essentially built on these key components: our experience as a company in doing similar research assessment exercises, and also our engagement with collaborators, which were in that pyramid diagram previously. For example, in 2010, we were the bibliometric provider for the Excellence in Research for Australia project, which is Australia's equivalent of the REF. And indeed, Scopus has been selected again to do that assessment exercise in 2012. So we've used that, as well as accountability. What we hope to achieve is to reduce the burden on HEFSI as the managing body for the REF through increasing efficiency and consistency of process. We've challenged ourselves to have absolute agility throughout the whole process, so there's an appropriate amount of support at the right time, and we're able to respond to problems and issues that will invariably come along. In addition, we look at simplicity and transparency as being very important. We need to have very clear processes for different topics, and we also need to make sure that the education is extremely good. So we're doing that by organising workshops, training and education around the use of Scopus, and also in terms of the contextual data, if they choose to use it, and anything else they require. So, in order to achieve this, we have to have end-to-end support for all key stakeholders within the process. That includes higher education institutions, the funding councils themselves, such as HEFSI, and also the panels who are going to be making the assessments themselves. So, essentially to do that, the fundamental aspect is accurate data matching. Mr. Hubbard described that each institution will submit 4 publications per researcher. You'll have to match them to the Scopus Database. And then from that, we'll basically then lead to doing the appropriate support and guidance for each of the panels in order to support that. So the panel members are the very important people. We have to support them in terms of the contextual information and the training on the methodology used for that, the interpretation of it, and also how to use the Scopus database itself. And so we've challenged ourselves to make sure that is consistent across panels and effective. And finally, the last bit of support is we are going to open up the article page of every submitted article in the that's submitted by a higher education institution in the REF, free of charge to all institutions, even if they do not subscribe to the Scopus database. This will allow them, it's through functionality that's already available, and allow them to view essentially all the relevant metadata, the abstract of the submitted publication, and also the number of citations. And we hope that will be a very, very useful tool in order to support everyone in the process. And that's me. Thank you very much for your attention.